When you're looking at the most popular genres in gaming, I think it's safe to say that when it comes to number of players worldwide, first-person shooters are likely the most popular. It's one of the most visceral forms of gameplay, literally putting you into the shoes of the protagonist that you're playing as. FPS games have always held a special place in my heart, and with that in mind, I give you my top 5 best first-person shooters.
5.
Coming in at number 5 is the original Quake. Yes, I know that Wolfenstein and Doom came before it, but as far as I'm concerned, Quake is where the first-person shooter really hit its stride. The world was dark and gritty thematically with really spooky bad guys, and you could make people explode into little bloody chunks with grenade launchers. It was also one of the first-person shooters to have a large dedicated online community with some of the most fun, fast-paced multiplayer combat in a shooter, period. If you look at modern Twitch shooters, pretty much all of them take their cues from Quake.
4.
At number 4 on my list is Battlefield 3. When Battlefield 3 came out, the graphics were so insanely good that most parents walking past computer screens would have assumed you were watching a movie. Yeah, the single player wasn't that good, but let's face it, that's not what this game was about. The combat, especially in big multiplayer matches, is extremely fast-paced and visceral, and the incredible sound design only adds to the intensity of large-scale engagements. The best thing about BF3 though is the destructibility. Almost everything can be destroyed, including in many cases entire buildings. Why try to snipe a sniper when you can just blow apart his sniper nest and kill him?
3.
Number 3 on my list is a very recent one in Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 was easily the most immersive, detailed single-player first-person experience I've had in a game, period. The island in Far Cry 3 is, well, probably the size of an actual large island, and the campaign was incredibly well done in pretty much every aspect. The sheer amount of things to explore and do is impressive on its own, then add one of the most beautiful game worlds we've seen in a video game yet, and what you have is a recipe for one of the best first-person shooters ever. In a landscape full of mostly military shooters, Far Cry 3 reinvigorated my hope that the FPS genre could be new and refreshing, pushing boundaries and making truly immersive experiences.
2.
Coming in at number 2 on my list is Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was one of the first games that I can remember to take the chaos that is multiplayer FPS and boil it down into an organized format. One team has one objective, and the other team has to stop them from completing that objective. The format rewarded tactical play and teamwork, and for a long time, despite games with better graphics coming out, Counter-Strike was the top competitive shooter just because it was so well designed. The most impressive and innovative part, though, was in the balancing. To this day, Counter-Strike remains the most balanced online first-person shooter there is. It's true, some of the guns are way better than others, but they also cost more to the purchase at the beginning of each round. It also had some of the best maps in FPS history, making heavy use of forced points of conflict, something a lot of multiplayer shooters are missing nowadays. Here's hoping there's a CS2.
1.
Finally, coming into the number 1 spot is Half-Life, and specifically Half-Life 2. The original Half-Life is incredible in a lot of ways, with one of the best single-player campaigns ever, but as far as impact, I have to give it to the second installment. Half-Life 2 brought us the Source engine, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is the engine with the longest life in gaming history. It was the first engine to bring us realistic physics, put realistic in quotes, ragdoll physics, more realistic destruction, facial movements, etc. The list goes on. It was also the engine that spawned such amazing games as Portal, Left 4 Dead, and of course my favorite, Dota 2. But it all started with Half-Life 2, which aside from being Source's guinea pig, was an incredible game in its own right. I remember just playing with a gravity gun for hours, throwing stuff around the environment just to see how it would react. Seriously though, where the hell is Half-Life 3? Well, that's gonna do it for my top 5 list of FPS games. I know you guys are probably pretty upset that I didn't mention GoldenEye 64, but the only notable thing GoldenEye did, aside from being really fun at the time, was bringing FPS games to the console. I mean, if you go back and play it, it really doesn't hold up that well.